Oh, well hello there. I am character actor R.A. Smitty, and you might recognize me from portraying the artist mostly referred to as Holder 539 on this here very YouTube channel. Today, however, I am talking to you for another reason, and that reason is to give you a disclaimer. Since the movie we are going to watch today is an actual horror movie, and rated R as far as I am aware, there will be some pretty gory scenes, and also the movie is going to tackle some pretty nasty subjects, for example sexual violence. So if you are triggered by this or by violence in general, then I'd suggest to look for another video. I mean, there's plenty to choose from. Also, since this movie is rated R, there will be some cussing at our part because why the fuck would you show this to your child anyway? So if you have a problem with that, bugger off, you fucking wanker. Hello Internet, I am the artist mostly referred to as Holder 539, and this is the Cabinet of the Strange and Macabre. Today we are going to have a look at the 2004 German-English co-production Creep, a movie written and directed by Christopher Smith, the guy behind Triangle and Severance. It is starring Franka Potente as the protagonist and Sean Harris as a creep. Since this movie is a relatively stereotypical specimen of the horror variety, much of the running time is spent with our protagonist being chased by the titular creep through the London subway. As one might imagine, such a chase involves a lot of running. This running in the movie is oftentimes used as sort of a scene transition, and oftentimes quite lengthy and redundant scene transition. So to condense the movie as well as our discussion of it down to its essence, if you will, every time our dialogue just boiled down to "and then Franka Potente was running through some rooms a bit more," we'll just edit in a little bumper that informs you that in the movie's continuity, Franka Potente is at the moment running. Since this might be confusing to some viewers, let's have a little test, shall we? Please imagine now a scene in which Franka Potente is running through a corridor with not much else happening around her. If you have done so, imagine me trying to summarize the scene in narration. Ready? Are we all on the same page yet? Great. Now imagine that scene was cut out and instead you'd see this. Running. And then more running. That was nice, wasn't it? With that thing, we already have a higher effects budget than the harvesting. Speaking of which, since we recorded the material for this review roughly around the same time, this video will also be an unscripted one. So if you're looking for an excuse to get sloshed, just drink every time somebody says, I wouldn't recommend doing that with hard liquor though, except if you wanna die. With that, let's get into the part of the video where we discuss what the hell is going on in this film.
Attention, this is an announcement from the New World Order. Please remain calm and stay seated while we are injecting subliminal messages. Welcome to the Cabinet of the Strange and Macabre.
Hello. Hello everybody. Today we will be reviewing another horror movie, but this time actually a good one. Hey, we'll be watching Creep. And no, not the Netflix movie, but I don't know if you can see it, but I'll insert it somewhere here in post. The 2004 movie that has something to do with the London Tube. Because yeah, that's where it's set. So yeah, what can you say about this movie?
I really liked it. The use of lightning, the camera work, actually, and the main character, what was her name?
I think this time I actually got the name. It was Kate.
Kate, yeah, but what was the actor's name?
Let me guess. It was Franka Potente.
Yeah, she did a great job in this movie,
and I think she's actually known from other things. Maybe if I can be bothered later, I look her up on IMDb and then maybe I'll insert some of those other things here. Maybe I will.
I think I already saw I've seen another movie with her, but not sure what was the name.
Okay, so yeah, what can we say about this movie then? Well, maybe we should start by summarizing the plot like last time. Except for this time, there actually is a plot. And yeah, this is at least one thing that right off from the start, this movie has over the harvesting, the thing reviewed last time. It has a plot and it has characters, and it starts off with an opening kill like it is tradition with a horror movie. So yeah, we start off in the sewers, and there's a grumpy comedy relief old guy who is leading a younger man who says he is there because he was busted for dealing weed and now is doing his community service or something down there, I think.
Yes.
And they stumble upon a creepy old tunnel somewhere in the wall of the sewer system. And then horror movie stuff. So yeah, they get.
Yeah.
At least one of them gets.
The opening was very stereotypical, but it was well shot and.
So after our pretty stereotypical opening kill scene with the old guy getting dragged off screen, and then the younger guy finds him and is like, "What have you seen? What are you looking at?" And the other guy looks behind him. Jump scare! The fate of the second dude is left unknown, and we jump into a really, really, really trippy credit sequence.
Yeah, that was really nice with all these flashing images and the use of color and these fast cuts and. Yeah,
and yeah,
right.
it was really nice, and
it wasn't just a boring credits sequence.
So yeah, after the credit sequence, we are dropped right into a party scene where Kate, our protagonist, is shown to walk around in a yellow dress that conveniently distinguishes her from all the other not yellowish people in the scene, including a guy named Guy.
Ah! Come on, fucking Guy!
Yeah. And he's a cokehead, so that's about his character for now, and he tries to land with Kate, and he isn't very successful.
And she also met her other female friend. What was her name?
I don't actually think she has a name, because she just mentions another friend named Gemma who isn't actually present in the scene. Yeah. Because then we get our George Clooney cameo of the movie. By his name being dropped while he isn't present in the scene, and this Gemma girl, she seems to have driven off to meet George Clooney, and so our protagonist follows.
Running, and then more running.
So then, after Kate has left the building, she goes to hail a cab, but she doesn't seem very successful in doing so, causing her to visit the nearest ATM, where she meets a homeless bloke. And she isn't really nice to him. So right after the scene with the homeless guy at the ATM, Karma hits her like a brick in the back of the head with the machine where she's trying to purchase a ticket. Not accepting her note, and then she is forced to do a thing that you don't really want to do when commuting on a tube in London, talk to other passengers. So she asks this rich lady who is behind her at the ticket thingy, and that rich lady surprisingly isn't really nice. Then, however, she buys a ticket from this homeless girl, who apparently just lies around having a ticket and gives it to her for $20.
For whatever reason, she has a ticket.
Yeah, that's a bit of a plot hole, isn't it? Because the homeless girl returns later, and it is revealed that she has a little hideout with her boyfriend, and it's actually in that station. So what she would need a ticket for, I don't know, maybe.
I first thought that she might have had a fake ticket, so she might want to trick her into buying a fake ticket.
That could be it, because the thing is, so Kate will not need the ticket for the rest of the movie.
That's quite a common thing to happen, that some people try to sell you fake tickets.
Yeah, actually, that happened to me last week when I was going to Lübeck, I think, because there at the train station in Hamburg, there are quite often some guys trying to sell you fake tickets to go across the country or something for like only $10, but then it's like something they found somewhere in the gutter. And yeah, it's actually quite common. So yeah, that might be it.
Yeah. What happens next?
There's this really strange scene where she unzips her purse and gets like a small flask of vodka from her purse and takes a sip while looking really displeased at a guy who's just eating, I think it's a kebab or something.
Mm.
And so yeah, she's just looking pissed at a guy eating. Then she falls asleep and yeah, then she's missed the train and...
But surprisingly, there's another train. And what I really liked about the scene, when the moment she got into the train, we saw in the back, this, I think it was, or some guy sneaking in, and we didn't know who he was, and this was interesting to create suspense.
Yeah, and as she gets into that other train that's just waiting at the station, strangely, before that she has checked and the station seems to be abandoned and locked up already, but there's this one other train with a stranger getting in with her, and it actually drives for a bit, and then it stops in the middle of a tunnel, I think, and she goes in front to look for the driver or something, but then she just finds Guy. Like, not just a guy, but Guy from the beginning.
Yeah.
The Coke guy.
That was one thing that bothered me. Why was he there?
Come on, fucking guy!
Yeah, that's the biggest plot hole of the movie, I think.
I think he would have sit next to her and watch her sleeping, and then the moment he realized, oh, she's waking up,
Oh yeah, right. That's pretty illogical because, as it turns out, he's there to rape her and to do some more cocaine. So the guy, even if he comes out of nowhere and it's a wee bit distasteful because rape is out of nowhere on a train and it comes out of left field, it serves the story's purpose because...
but why was there a train in the first place?
Oh yeah, that's unanswered. Because... The guy who's driving the train, spoilers, he's dead. And that's not really explained, but we know the reason why there are people dead in this movie, because there actually is a killer or something close to it, because something from off-screen drags our felon from inside the train, and there are some horrible noises and some off-screen gore. And then a bloody hand emerges, and it's implied that he tries to get up in, and then he's dragged off screen again, and we don't see him for a few scenes.
Running. And then more running.
And then she runs inside the tunnel back to the station, and there she finds the dog. The dog from the beginning, which we have forgotten to mention again. Oh, fuck, we're incompetent. Okay, now we are trying to destroy our props. Okay, will it stay on? I think it...
Yeah.
It stays on. Okay, so commence the show. I don't even know if the camera picked up this piece of comedy gold of a little thingy on our table falling over. Oh, great. That's the highlight of the show, everybody. So yeah, but she follows the dog to this little maintenance thingy, and do you really think train stations have little maintenance doors in the wall leading to a full-on
I don't know.
apartment?
Probably not.
Because if there's something like this, there would be homeless people living in every one of those things.
Yeah.
I think if they were like this spacious as they were depicted in the movie, maybe I would live in one of those things.
Yeah.
Same room
Maybe,
like here, just...
maybe this was some kind of emergency exit, but that wouldn't make sense because...
There was no exit.
There was no exit.
Like an emergency dead end. In the maintenance closet thingy, she meets two homeless people. One of them, the girl from the beginning whom she has bought the ticket from and who owns the dog, as it seems, and the other one being her boyfriend. And then she offers him $60 and he agrees to take her to the security station. Because yeah, there actually is a security station in this whole thing with cameras and a guy sitting there. But
that guy was kind of creepy.
Yeah, it's this this nerdy looking fellow who's introduced to I think we should wait a minute because the neighbors are going apeshit on the stairs, and I think that could actually be heard on the recording. Okay. So yeah, there's a creepy security guard, and as they finally get to them, multiple things happen at once, and shit hits the fan pretty much. Because while the security guard is super unhelpful and more interested in doing crossword puzzles than actually doing anything about people getting actually murdered in the station to which he has access with multiple cameras.
He also doesn't want to call the police, even though there's a dead body. Clearly, he wanted, but then what happens to him?
While she's bickering with him, the guy actually dies, and while she drags his corpse in front of the camera, the guy is like,
Ah! Come on, fucking guy!
and right in the moment where he goes like, oh, I should probably have done something, you see the killer's hand coming up behind him and go, ugh, and that was the security guard.
This is the first time we actually see the creep, not his face, but his body, and I was like, whoa, what?
So yeah, that's the thing we should maybe talk about, because the movie's called Creep, and this is not referring to Guy, at least not referring to that guy, because it's actually referring to the entity that resides in the tube. But it could be also applied to Guy, who is like a one-note cokehead rapist and one of the few male characters in the movie.
Yeah, the movie wants us to see that there's not just one creep down there.
There's a lot of creeps, because in the beginning you could even argue that maybe our protagonist is a creep, because she's acting antisocially towards everybody she meets and is generally kind of creepily leering at the other passengers. Or you could think maybe the pale guy eating fast food at the station is a creep, and the kebab he's just eating actually is maybe the meat of the opening kill or something. But no, that's actually not the case, and yeah, there's an actual creep, and I think we gotten off track again, but that was something that we had to mention again, because that creep is actually active in the next scene. Mandy, the woman who was waiting at the sleeping bag pile, gets dragged off by the killer, but not before noticing his calling card rats, because that's a strange thing. The killer has an obsession with rats.
Then he runs. Then what was the name of the other guy?
The other guy was named Jimmy, I think.
Yeah.
Jim or Jimmy. Let's just call him Jimmy, because that reminds me of the guy from Mindless Self-Indulgence. But I think its name actually was Jimmy. So yeah, we might be right about that. After he finds the trail of blood, he doesn't directly proceed to spring into action. He just vanishes for a moment and then appears again as Kate finds him being in the maintenance closet and shooting up heroin. So yeah. After that short intermission, they actually continue into the tunnel to find an escape, and there they are nearly run over by a train. Once again, a train that comes out of pretty much nowhere, and
we once again don't know who's driving it.
Because with this one, it's really strange. So they are in the tunnel, and then there's this sound in the air, and the tracks are vibrating, so that's how they know that there's a train. Jimmy turns around, he yells train, the thing is coming towards them at pretty much train-like speeds, and with a typical round light, and you think, okay, they're going to run away from the thing, and it's going to rush past them in the last moment, and that's exactly what happens. But then the train stops, and Jimmy goes to investigate. What he finds there is really interesting, because as he enters the train, there's actually a dead conductor or train driver or whatever lying on the ground with his head bashed in, and so the question remains, was that the guy originally driving the train and he was killed just then when the thing stopped, or was he actually the guy who was dead in the cockpit of the train in the beginning, and the creep just dragged him out and placed him there? But then the question remains, why?
for shock value.
But actually that works because Jimmy is running amok in the train and is bashing in windows and things and is screaming for the killer to reveal himself, and then Kate enters the scene, and right as she looks over to him and he's lowering his crowbar and looking over to her, some hands emerge from the ceiling between two of the train cars and just pull him up and break his neck.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty badass.
That
Nothing
was-
much to say about that, except how did the creep manage to get his hands between the train cars? Is there actually like a space between those things? I mean, I never was on the London Tube, but around here trains have like rubber at that part, and so maybe he cut the rubber. Okay, he had a knife, so this could be it. But yeah, the guy is pretty much a fucking ninja when it comes to moving in trains.
Running. And then more running.
As the creep starts to chase our protagonist again, she runs into some kind of side tunnel leading her to the sewers, where she falls and trips, and there's some like not really that necessary but effective side gore when she trips and falls down this sewer slide thingy and pulls out her fingernail, and I really hate this when something like that happens with fingernails in movies. I mean, teeth and fingernails, man. That's really what gets me.
Have you ever watched American History X?
Ages ago, but
Scene with teeth.
oh yeah, fuck, the thing with the gutter and oh yeah, where he has to bite. Oh fuck yeah, that's
Was a little bit similar to that.
Oh yeah. But I think
Not bad.
Yeah, it's
Gruesome.
not that bad, but
It was like, ah!
fingernails are effective on a whole different level.
It's funny. We can see heads exploding and limbs being cut off, but this doesn't bother us at all.
Well, then there's fucking fingernails.
And we totally freak out. That's strange.
Yeah, maybe because it would be pretty feasible to pull out your own fingernail, while to blow up one's head is not that easy of a task, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd really have to try.
Same with eyeballs and so.
Oh yeah. Eyeballs are like a fringe thingy for me, because if it's like, do you know this? I don't know what movie it is. I think it's some old Fulgi's thing, maybe one of the zombie movies or something. There's like the scene where person who is about to get killed by a zombie is hanging around at some door. The zombie grabs her through the door and pulls her in, and then there's a sharp splinter of wood, and it's right through the eyeball, and the eye gouging is presented to you from the side, where you can actually like see the round bit of the eye, and but yeah, next scene. So there we get our first real face reveal from the creep, which comes skulking from the dark and is like,
Yeah.
I think I'll definitely put a picture of the creep.
That was fucking
like
creepy.
Here, yeah. I mean, maybe I'm the true creep of this review, but maybe I'll just put a picture of the monster right here, because then
You don't have that nice makeup like he has.
Yeah, that's one role I'm actually not wide enough for.
What I liked most about the creep was the fact that he wasn't CGI. He was real, and
Oh yeah,
you
that
could
was
see
nice.
that they really put some effort into making the costume for him.
So yeah, for this they actually really took some person whose name I can later find out over IMDb, who did actually only get like 4 or 5 lines in this movie, which weren't or but apart from that poor bugger must have had a pretty uncomfortable time in this prosthetic makeup, because his face is like entirely blistered, and his ears are fucked up, and So there must have been some pretty heavy latex prosthetics around
Especially
the
his
head.
left eyeball, I
Oh
think.
yeah, he has one fucked up eyeball. I don't really know if this was from the beginning on, because as we said, the face is left in the shadows for most of the movie, but later, for the time you see it, it sustains some pretty big damage, because the guy gets the creep, so not guy, but him too. Oh, that's really not a good movie to be a guy, or named guy, or to be a creep. Yeah, but he gets the shit beaten out of him multiple times, by Kate, by other characters whom we will introduce right about now, I think. Because, yeah, she gets captured by the creep in the weird warehouse thingy, and the next time she wakes up, she finds herself in a flooded cage. So it's like she's in the water with cages around her, and in one of the other cages there is George, who is the guy from the beginning, whom we didn't introduce by name, I think, so people will be super confused who the fuck George is. So yeah, she meets a guy named George, and it's a guy from the beginning who, surprise surprise, has actually survived the opening kill and ended up in the cage and remained there for the entire duration of the movie until now.
What's also interesting is that in the beginning of the movie he said that he doesn't want to follow the older man because he isn't able to swim. He was afraid to fall into the water, and now we are reminded that he can't swim and that he cannot dive to the next cage. So
oh, you're right. That's good that you mention it, because yeah, that's the reason that Kate actually has to do something in the movie, something proactive, even if in the beginning she tries to coax George into doing it, then she dives down herself and actually ends up rescuing him and knocking out the creep with her heel. She takes off her shoe and just whacks the creep with her stiletto in the face, and that's a pretty satisfying scene. And
but she doesn't want to kill him, so...
Oh yeah, that's kind of stupid, because the creep drops a spear. He actually has a spear like right next to him, and
they could have easily killed him.
So George is actually hurt, and they escape, and they get to the weird part of the movie. Because as they escape deeper into the facility where the creep seems to keep his victims, it turns out that they are now in some sort of underground bunker with a nursery and a medical laboratory and operating room in it. But everything there looks pretty old, pretty fucked up, and pretty abandoned. But they don't really have time to marvel at the scenery because they are still being chased by the creep. But there is enough time to show us a lovely shelf with dead fetuses in different jars, and that returns later for one scene that's kind of pointless, except providing some exposition, because this movie actually has a hidden background lore. You see, in one of the scenes where they are chased through the nursery part of the bunker, there's a bunch of beds, and on one of them there's the name Craig or Craig, I don't really know how to pronounce him, but remember this name, because it's the name of the creep. And I think I'll do something that's totally new for this show right in the second episode. During we are recording, I'll step off screen and get another beer.
Okay.
Want to?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it will really be easier to just leave the camera rolling and cut this later. And now I'll just rummage around in the background to find a bottle opener. So yeah, that's professional.
Yes.
Oh, great. Here it is.
I just did a magic trick.
You just... okay, thanks. That would be enough of content to just leave this whole bit in, and whoa, shit, that's magic, and
Running. running. And then more running.
The killer seemingly remembers that there is still the second victim that is strapped to the table, the homeless girl they found while running past her. They presume her dead, but while they make their escape, she actually becomes conscious again and starts screaming, and that lures in the creep, who then proceeds to initiate the most disturbing scene of the entire movie.
Yeah.
Let's just say people are getting split apart by a saw, and not from the end you'd normally start to saw a person in half. I don't know. Is there really a normal end to start sawing someone in half?
Probably not.
Okay, the normal way might be through the middle, like magicians of old used to do it. But yeah, it's like
That's the
this way, and yeah, it's pretty.
That's not the proper way to cut people in half.
No, that's. Although it would make for a much more compelling magic trick if you manage to get the person back together. Probably that exists somewhere in Vegas.
Probably everything exists in Vegas.
But yeah, in this movie the person doesn't get put back together in the end, and our creep doesn't even bother with the corpse that much, and in fact just goes to stare at the creepy collection of dead kids and organs and jars, and our protagonists don't seem to really use the time it takes the creep to saw a person in half really properly, because when we cut to them next time, they are still in the bunker near their escape back into the train tunnels, and they find a photo of the doctor guy, and yeah, it's actually it seems to be the father of the creep, because the doctor is shown to stand next to a pretty Gollum-looking kid. So yeah, the next part of the big mystery that's going on behind the obvious plot surface of this movie.
And then more running.
When the killer arrives and attacks once more, George seems to get the upper hand on him until the killer starts to speak. And this is throwing off everybody, because once again he looks like bloody Smeargol, and he doesn't really sound like my precious hobbitses. His last few words actually reveal that what he's saying were the dying words of the homeless woman he's just sawn in half. So that's freaky for you. The creep, after they last time missed the chance to stab them, now impales George on a sharp pointy thingy that for some reason sticks out of the wall. Did you pick up actually why there's a saw blade coming out of the wall?
I don't know, I think it was something, had something to do with a window he just crashed, so...
Oh, maybe. Or it was there to hang flowers on it. Those hanging baskets. Do you know those things?
Maybe.
Those are pretty nice. So
Well,
yeah,
it actually looked like a saw, so it was strange.
Maybe it was like a prop from another horror movie. But yeah, the movie at least has a good showdown, because after George is out of the way, the creep goes after Kate again, who once again passes up on a good chance to do something, and doesn't attack really while the guy's on the ground, but chooses to run instead. But at least she uses the time she is ahead of the killer to find a weapon. There's that long hook thingy on a chain, and maybe she just provided inspiration for Roadhog like 10 years before Overwatch was released. Oh, that's weird. Maybe there will be a remake of this movie in 10 years where she's played by a fat guy wearing a pig mask. I would watch that movie. I would definitely watch this movie. When the creep finally catches up to Kate, she has armed herself with a chain and the hook, and she manages to hook the creep through his jugular and through his throat. Then he's hooked to a chain, and she throws the chain onto the rails, and so the actual end kill isn't even her with the hook, but she really goes overboard by having the chain being picked up by a train and the guy's entire throat being ripped out.
And it almost touched
The electric wire.
yeah.
Because I think that was her original plan. She wanted to electrocute him, but then she threw it too far, and
who the fuck is driving the train once again?
yeah, that's a good question. Who the fuck is driving that train again? Because in the very next shot, when she arrives at the platform and emerges from the tunnel, we see that it is still a bit of time which has to pass until there are people entering the station. So yeah, another random night train that's never explained and that's appearing out of nowhere. And this one really can't be driven by the killer. So yeah, at least one mystery train in this movie.
Do they actually close doors at night in London? I don't know.
Actually, yes. Surprisingly enough, they apparently really locked down the tube stations in London at a certain time of the night, and apparently a bunch of people actually managed to get themselves stuck down there in 2014. While since 2016 there are 5 lines which provide 24-hour service at least on Fridays and Saturdays, this wasn't the case in 2004 when Creep was made. Guess that means we have reason to believe that this movie is based on a true story now. Maybe they do so that there are no homeless people camping out in the subway. Which did happen anyway in the movie, so yeah, that doesn't seem to be a very good preventative measure to just lock it and don't have anyone patrol the whole thing. Because I think that's actually a thing that's a bit unrealistic too, with a one night guard for the entire station.
But wasn't she looking for another guard?
Yeah, she was. Who was supposed to be at the next station, so the movie implied that every station only had one guy watching it, and I don't know, I mean, here we have some stations being constantly watched by like at least 2 people at all times who are doing rounds deep into the late hours of the night. But then again, like the town I am originally from, there the train station actually, the one near my house actually got locked up at some point, but the platform was still open. But yeah, in some towns they do it in small and rural areas like central London. So definitely, yeah, that's that plot hole solved. So what else is there to say? So we could ask ourselves who the creep was in the end. Oh, and also, why did the creep hang out in the bunker under London? Why was the bunker even there? Why was it abandoned and all the stuff in there was just left behind? How did that homeless couple have electrical lighting in their hugely convenient hideout behind that maintenance hatch? What was up with all those dead babies? What did the creep survive on before he escaped from the bunker? What was the point of the entire red thing? Why were those flooded cages here? And lastly, since subway trains commonly have a deadman switch, which the person driving has to constantly hold down, and this film had at least one train that couldn't possibly have been driven by the creep, who was Train?
Yeah, but there was one last scene where she was mistaken for a homeless woman.
Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me. When she emerges from the tunnel, that's pretty nice. She's wearing the jacket of Jimmy, the guy whom she's hung out with for most part of the movie and whose neck got broken earlier, but before his untimely demise, he still had some time to give her his jacket, and she's wearing that. And also, the dog reappears. The dog from the homeless couple that was left behind at the station, it actually finds her, and she falls asleep at the station with the dog in her lap, and the next time she opens her eyes, it's when morning commuters start to pour into the station, and big elderly guy with a suit drops a few coins next to her, mistaking her for a homeless person, mirroring the shot the movie more or less introduced this character on, with a ticket and the homeless girl and all. I think she even is sitting around more or less in the same spot where she was earlier in the movie, disapprovingly looking at other people and drinking her vodka from her little purse flask thingy. So yeah, that's nice and artistic. So, wanna review the DVD once again, because this one is just much more clean and more beautiful than the other one. And notice something? It doesn't have a stupid quote from some made-up magazine on the front. Maybe this is a sign of quality if you don't have to advertise your movie with a stupid with like a stupid little quote from Entertainment Weekly or something. But it has a stupid German tagline. Verpasse nicht deinen letzten Zug. But yeah, that's so don't miss your last train. I mean, this one
That's
at least
stupid.
makes more sense than Solstice is coming.
This is the moral. Oh, this is what the movie wants us to tell us. Don't miss your last train.
Yeah, maybe
You will
that's
have
more lesson.
horrible consequences. Always be on time to catch the train.
Don't miss your train, or you might be forced to talk to really impolite security personnel.
Or you might get killed by a creep.
Yeah, maybe. But I think at least one of those fates is much more likely to happen to you at a real-life train station. And you can guess what.